The red dashed box that you see here, that really approximates the limits of a future community center. And so if I look at the next slide here, you'll see this is what phase 2 looks like. And so it accommodates a future community center, but it also retains a lot of the features from phase 1, such as the community garden, the play area, the central green with the focal tree, some of the picnic space, as well as fitness equipment. And it not only retains the parking, but it also allows for expansion of the parking to serve the needs of a future community center. And so I think with that, I will turn it over to Jason.
Thank you, David. So next, I just wanted to talk about next steps. We are on the council agenda for October 20th, 2020, and we're looking to complete construction documents by June 2021, and then we are anticipating completing construction in June 2022. So we're a little ways out yet from completion of the park. At this time, I'd like to open it up for any additional questions.
I have some questions. I didn't know what to do, whether I should raise my hand or just speak up. So,
Teresa, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't figure that out. So, but go ahead, Rudy.
Okay, all right. Well, my first thought is this. I went and took a walk around this park last week, and you know, the playground that's there looks to be in good shape. So I'm curious if that's going to be repurposed somehow, or what. I mean, is there, you know, and I realize this is a different project, but it just seems like a waste of money to get rid of it. So I'm curious if that discussion had happened.
Yeah, it's something we looked at really carefully, and because of how the elements are laid out in the park and being able to accommodate a future community center, we felt that this layout provides the best opportunities for us to maximize the different uses within the park. And again, this is something we didn't take lightly. We did speak to the community about this in the community meetings, and the majority of folks were on board with the removal of the playground, with the knowing that we're going to be replacing that playground and providing a larger play area that's also inclusive.
Well, I just want to add that we looked really closely at the existing playground and evaluated it, and the community was able to provide us quite a bit of information about its construction and the methods that were used and the details and inspection, and it doesn't meet the city spec, right? So when you're building something on a private property, which is what this was at the time, right? It was a private community church. It was meant for community use, but
okay.
Private property, they're held to a different construction standard and specification than when we're putting something in a park where we know the use is going to be high intensity.
So that's not something that we can even use in another park area that might be deficient.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's actually really sad. And this brings me to my next question, because the Sharks were involved in donating that to that particular project. But we want to encourage that kind of involvement from a big organization like the Sharks. So I'm curious, has there been any discussion with them maybe to look at this new development, and do they want to be involved in that going forward?
Nicolle?
I actually was thinking Yves was going to chime in on that. I know he had some ideas and thoughts about managing them.
I'm happy to comment on that. Thank you, Nicolle, and thank you, Jason. A big part of the master plan is to present the plan, get your input, and get the city council to provide feedback. The business model or the approach on delivery is something we would do once we've confirmed that work plan. I think one of the things that Jason and David and I talked about was honoring that community effort and the Sharks' participation. So I believe in the master plan, we do reference that there would be an intent to speak with the Sharks and look for those opportunities.
Yeah, because I think, well, we want to encourage that, right? So I think going forward, that would be a really wise thing to do. And you know, especially now we're money strapped, and Avi talked about the city manager maybe looking at the purse strings even a little harder. So, so anyways, I just wanted to bring that up. The third question I had was, and I think I got the answer for this, but when I was looking at the drawing, I mean, this is a small park. And I drove around to a couple of the other parks in the area, and they also are very small. So the parking spaces struck me as odd because we're taking up park space. But then when you look at the phase 2, where we're building a community center, it sort of made more sense, but it's still hard to swallow. So I don't, you know, I want to try to get as much green space as we can get.
Yeah. Again, this was one of the community center was actually a #1 priority for the community, and a close second was to not lose all the parking that's available now. The area around the park, unfortunately, is very parking deficient, and so that was a request by the community to leave some parking with the park. I know that's not our normal thing that we do, but this was also a high priority from the community.
Well, and I think also we can't have community gardens without parking.
Yes.
It's incredibly hard to navigate a community garden when you can't park to bring in your tools, and you know you're not going to bring wheelbarrows and tools and rakes and shovels up the street. So that often presents a challenge for us. So when we have and we do have some community garden spaces that don't have parking, like Wallenberg, and it's a challenge, right? We hear that from those gardeners.
I get it. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of parking spaces. And when I first looked at, you know, and I made this statement at the beginning, at first I thought that's just too much. But then when you see the community center there, that's going to need that kind of access as well. So I just wanted to bring the point up, but I kind of understand it, even though there's a community center coming in there later. So.
Yeah, and I think, and just to be clear, when Jason was talking about the construction schedule, that is only for phase 1. The community center is not funded at this time. And it might be quite some time before we have the funding available for it, but it was a high priority for the community in the need to have spaces where they can gather and have community meetings that are in San Jose where groups can gather and have that, you know, indoor spaces for senior programs and, you know, things that we can't currently offer in a park. And the discussion of community centers is one we have so much as a department, right? And people are often, you know, why are you building more buildings? We should have more green space. And we honor that and recognize it, but the community still needs spaces to gather, and we don't.
I think Chappie Jones that's the project that he wants as well, right? So, what's the time frame on the community center in terms of phase 2?
We can't commit to one right now.
Yeah, because see that, and I'm wondering if, I mean, Chappie as a driving force certainly could make sure that happens, but how long does he have left? You know, right? So, anyways, just I'm thinking out loud, but.
Rudy, I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to cut you right there because we do need to get to, and feel free to chime back in later. I want to get to the community questions.